started. So our topic this week is called solace. So it's a word that kind of implies, protection, safety, sort of this also sense of reverence. So, as you guys are always so kind to ask me about things that are going on with my mom, life's been stressful, right? And so my time on my mat is like my sacred time, and it's less and less than it used to be because all my free time's been tied up. So it's even more important that that time is really sacred to me. So you guys are often, benefiting from what I'm working on in my own practice. So this is what we're working on as far as creating that sense of, being in your own temple, the sacred space, and coming into a meditation practice. A lot of studies, I love when the science kind of catches up with yoga. A lot of the science shows that things like inflammation decrease when we do a practice like this, where we're really focusing inward. We're going to go into a meditative state at the end of class, sit in meditation. So it can lower inflammation in the body, lower our stress hormones in our body, and all that stuff tends to snowball and wreak havoc. It just throws our nervous system off balance, as we often talk about, which then affects every other system in the body. So we'll work a lot on hips today, because in order to be able to sit and meditate, we need certain things to be comfortable, right? And that's often an impediment. We try to sit and we don't feel good, right? The knees might hurt, the hips, the lower back. So if we work a lot in the hip joints, that often alleviates knee and lower back stuff. So we're focused more in on the hips, but also, loosening up the lower back so that we can sit like this and not feel like we're gonna just collapse into a heap, and mobilizing in through the knee joints as well. So that'll be our practice today. We'll do a little ball work to kind of release some of the areas around the hips. So any questions? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and come to your back. And as we always do, we'll begin with our breathing practice. So begin to follow your breath in and out into the sacred space of your body. And have a sort of reverence for the breath. Perhaps a sense of gratitude for the breath. Because without it, we have no life force energy. So the breath manages much of our system. The movement of the diaphragm tends to stimulate the bones in our pelvis, our lower back, and the hips. So as you breathe in, imagine a focal point, and that maybe could be somewhere around your heart space or even your navel center, somewhat of a focal point. And from that focal point, every time you breathe in, imagine expanding away from that focal point. So let me explain that a little bit more. So as you breathe in, imagine you're lengthening up and lengthening down away from that focal point. So that could again be like your navel, your solar plexus, your heart, wherever you want to feel like maybe is your center today. Because when we sit in a meditation, we need to ground down as well as rise up. And so the spine is essentially lengthening in those two directions. So see if you might get a sense of expansion, lengthening from the focal point as you inhale. And as you exhale, there's just a subtle softening, releasing, and awareness maybe going back to that focal point. Let's really tune in on a subtle level now to this flow of the breath from your focal point. This way, we also are drawing our attention into this kind of temple of the body. A lot of spiritual traditions talk about it as such, right? So we need to keep our temple clean. We need to watch what we're putting into it, what we're feeding ourselves, what we're putting on our skin, what we're exposing ourselves to keep that temple sacred. So we can think about those things. How do we spend our time? What do we put into it? Are we treating it as sacred? And times if we think about it, we'll realize kind of been maybe a little, negligent in how we care for our inner space. And as we take these last few breaths, my teacher talks about, this internal resonant sound of the breath as being the sound of the creator. He calls it Shabda Brahma, which is a Sanskrit phrase. Shabda means sound or word, and Brahma means absolute of the universe. Or we can think of it as the supreme self or the supreme being, however we want to think about it. So as we take our attention inward, we listen to that sound, the Shabda Brahma, the sound of the creator within us. All right, so take your time. We're gonna go ahead and bend our knees. Feet flat. Take your feet as wide as your mat. And then arms could be wherever you'd like to relax them. We're gonna take the right knee, drop it open. And when it drops open, notice maybe there's a little more openness in the inner thigh, and maybe the outer hip has a little bit of sensation as well. It's very mild to begin here. And then drop that knee into the center. And again, maybe there's sensation on the inner leg, outer leg, lower back, maybe the opposite hip. And just do that a few rounds, hinging the knee open and then dropping it in. And so this little movement we call external and internal rotation. So we open in the external and we drop in into internal. We're going to be able to sit, if we have lack of fluidity here in this hip joint, it can make it hard to sit in a cross-leg position. And of course, sometimes there's just bone structure. So we've talked about that with some of you. If you have trouble sitting on the floor, sometimes it's just your bone structure, in which case you have to prop yourself up or change the position. So there's no saying you have to meditate in a cross-leg position. It's just very traditional. Okay, now let's go ahead and pause that and do a few on the opposite side. Drop the knee open. Notice if the range of motion is much different on one side versus the other, often the case. My right leg seems to move a little more readily than the left. But just notice for yourself what it feels like if you have more restriction on one leg versus the other. As always with our somatic work, let's go slowly, smoothly, mindfully, with that sense of reverence for your physical body. When we slow down, there's more of the sense of care, right? So, for yourself, like when you're taking care of kids or whatever, and you're rushing, trying to do a million different things, or often they get crankier, right? They don't feel cared for. But when we slow down and we give them our attention and we're really present with another being, whether it's our child, a pet, or our partner, they feel more loved. So paying attention, slowing down with your own body, you're going to feel more nourished, more cared for. And then come back and pause. Always you can readjust yourself if you feel like you've, dropped off center. Breathe in, breathe out. Now we're going to repeat that with some add-ons. Now drop the right knee open and pick up the right foot. And notice maybe now there's some different sensations. And then foot comes down, drop the knee in, and the action of lifting the foot, you might not be able to get it off the floor, you might be able to. So don't worry about if you can't get the foot off the floor. Drop it open, lift the foot up, a little easier. Drop it in, and you may even take that foot even wider, like off your mat, and that might help you lift the foot. And you don't have to get it off the ground again. So maybe just the action of trying to lift it is enough for today. Because as I try to lift, it engages this outer leg a little bit. So the upper outer IT band. And oftentimes we're tight there between the knee and the outer hip. And that can limit us in a seated position. So we'll work a little bit with IT bands today too. Okay, pause that leg and then let's take a breath, readjust. And then we'll do the other side. So we'll drop the knee open, kick the foot up, release it down. Drop the knee to center. Maybe you need to widen that foot wider than your mat and maybe pick the foot up or maybe try to pick the foot up. And then go ahead, do a few more rounds. The other leg stays completely still the whole time. You're trying to isolate into the one leg. Let's do two more. It's often more challenging to drop that knee in because it's not a thing we do as often, right? We don't go into internal rotation very often in our daily living, nor external, but external is a little more accessible, a little more common. After this next one, take a pause and breathe. And then these pauses come back into the temple, back into your sacred space, back into presence. The yoga philosophies tell us that yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. And then when that happens, we still the mind, the seer can rest in its true nature. So meaning all these things that whirl around in our mind, all these constant worries and thoughts and fears, not our true nature. When we calm the mind, come into presence, come into our true nature. Yoga Chitta Vritta Nirodha is this sutra that says yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. All right, so we're gonna again add on to this. Arms out to a T. Drop both knees over to the right, look to the left. Kick your right foot up and press into the inner left foot and roll a little bit more over towards your right leg. And then release. And windshield wiper to the left, look to the right. And then try to pick up that right foot. It might not lift, so don't worry. You're just trying. And then repeat. So we're going to work on the right leg only, but we're windshield wipering both legs. Both legs to the right, pick up the right foot, press into the left foot, release, both knees to the left, look to the right. Try to pick up the right foot. And now continue. So this one, we start to really get into the connection of the brain to our bodies. So you have to really think about what you're doing. And this way we can start to create neuroplasticity. change in the brain by putting all of our attention into what we're doing. Let's do one more with the right being our main focus. Maybe you're closing your eyes and really going inward. After this next one, come back to center and pause. Breathe in, breathe out. Notice your right side versus your left. We're going to go ahead and do that on the other side. So knees drop to the left, look to the right. Pick up your left foot, push into your right big toe side, and then release. Drop the knees to the right, look to the left, and try to pick up that left foot. Again, it may or may not go. Okay, so now working with the left leg, doing all that action. Alternate side to side. Try to stay focused because this is a little different than what we normally do. So it's easy to get yourself all mixed up. Just lifting that left foot. Knees are going opposite of the head. Notice sensations in the body as you get that foot to lift or try to lift the foot. Maybe your arm needs to press down a little more to get the foot off the ground. Or maybe you're just trying to get the foot off the ground. Good, and come back to the center. Take a pause. Breathe. So we're doing a lot of these like hip hinging work today because it gets into the hip joints, the knee joints, but it also loosens up the lower back. So we are going to be doing quite a bit of these kind of movements today. Okay, both knees to the right, stay there. Your head could be neutral or turned, up to you. Now again, working with the right leg, lift the right foot, look over your left shoulder if you want. And then release. And we're going to stay with the knees to the right. Just lift and lower that foot. Notice how there's a little twist in the side body on the left. And a little engagement of your left outer hip and glute. When those muscles are weak, that can also affect our knees. But it'll often prevent us from doing a lot of sitting with that external rotation. So we're just lifting, lowering that right foot, and breathing. Slow it down. Be present with what you're feeling. As you release the foot down, let's try to have a pause. Let go of the work, and now repeat. And then foot comes down, let go, pause, and repeat. So now we're slowing it down a bit more, making it into a true pandiculation. So pandiculation is when we engage, we notice, and then we disengage. And it gives the brain an opportunity to notice the contrast between the two. And you might notice this gets into the left IT band, left outer knee a little bit as well. How far you lift that right foot is completely up to you. And it's easy to just start speeding things up again. The minute I start talking, I'm no longer really focused on my movement and I start to speed up. So notice if your mind starts talking, you're going to speed up. Okay, back to the center, pause, even yourself out. Let's try that on the other side. Drop both knees to the left. Head could be neutral or turn to the right. And we're gonna lift the lift the left foot this time. And then release. Inhale to lift. Exhale to disengage. Notice sensations along the right outer hip, the right outer leg, outer knee. Maybe even feel this into your neck and chest a bit. So just notice where you feel it. How much you want to engage is up to you. So as I lift the left foot, I could press into my right side of my foot. That'll make it more intense. Or I could just kind of keep it more soft and not press. So see what feels good. Remember last week we did a lot of just really soft movement, no engaging. So maybe that feels better today. After this next one, come back to the center and pause. Even yourself out. Take a breath. Back to the temple. Let's come back to our focal point. So breathe from your focal point, lengthening down, lengthening up. So if your breath could move in two directions. Okay. Now let's go ahead and cross the right ankle over the left knee. So we are in a figure 4 position. And then arms again out to a T. We're gonna start with a windshield wiper, right, left again. So knees to the right, head to the left. Knees to the left, head to the right, while you're in that figure 4. And as you do this, notice outer hips, outer leg, lower back. And maybe slow it down. Inhale into a twist. Exhale to center. Take a few more rounds. Whether or not you have something on your head is up to you. Maybe you need some support. But if it gets in your way, you can always take it out. All right, come back to the center and keep the figure 4. If you do have a blanket under your head, now we're going to take it away and interlace your hands behind the back of your head. Okay, gently flex that right foot. Now inhale, we're going to go into arch and curl. So arch your back, elbows press down, open through the elbows. And now exhale, curl in. So lift your head, chest, bring your knees in, curl in. And then foot down, inhale, arch. Open the elbows, contract your spine. Exhale, curl in. Now as you curl in, activate your lower abdominals by pressing into your low back a little more. So weakness in the lower abdominals, we've talked about how it can affect our lower back. So if we strengthen, this is considered more of our deep core. It can be helpful for trying to sit in a meditative posture. Do 2 more of these. After this next one, release. Right foot down, arms can go back out to a T. And then left ankle crossing over. Figure 4, and we're gonna windshield wiper right to left, head going opposite of the knees. And then keep that going. So again, that right IT band, as we drop over to the left, gets a little bit of extra lengthening, especially with the weight of the foot on the outer knee. It can be really helpful for starting to create length there. And you might be pushing a little bit into the floor if that feels good to add that extra layer of sensation. After this next round, let's go ahead and return to the center and keep your figure 4. Flex the foot a little bit, and now interlace your hands behind the back of your head. Always good to get some arch and curl in, really good for our spine. Inhale, arch your back, elbows press. Exhale, curl up and in. Lift your foot and just squeeze in, press into your lower back. So as you curl up and you press down, it'll help you lift a little more, but it'll also activate the transverse abdominis, low, deep core. I try longer exhales. I always am a fan of that. I recommend it a lot because it's a detoxifying breath. It's getting all the air out and allows more fresh air to enter the lungs if we empty more. And it's also calming and grounding for our nervous system to take longer exhales. This last 2 rounds, can you try and really finish both phases of your breath? So a complete inhalation all the way to the top without being excessive, then exhale all the way out. One more. And then let it go, both feet flat, relax your arms, take a moment to be in the pause. And in the pauses, we're trying to calm those fluctuations of our mind, not go into, thinking mind, what we have to get done later. See if we can stay present, temple of the body. So if we were in our own spiritual space, so we're in the church today, but if you're in your own spiritual space, we wouldn't want to be distracting ourselves with all the things. We want to really be immersed in the experience, to be present with whatever, is being spoken or what we're singing, what it is we're, focusing on. Okay, so now we're going to cross all the way at the inner thigh, right leg on top. So now the legs are kind of crisscrossed all the way, a little tighter now, and go back into the windshield wiper. So to the right, head to the left, and then to the left, head to the right. And with the legs crossed closer, you might find your range of motion is a little smaller. Maybe it'll go all the way into the twist, that's okay. And we're stretching out through the outer hips here, the outer gluteal area. And again, just loosening up the lower back as we rock side to side. Maybe you're pressing into the foot if that feels good. You want to add a little pause as you come into one twist. Stay there for an extra moment. And notice maybe you can go a little farther if that feels good. Last one here, finish this cycle. We'll come back to the center. Keep the legs crossed. And take an inhale, exhale, squeeze your inner thighs towards each other as if you're gonna take your knees in opposite directions. This activates the inner thighs and the pelvic floor. And then relax. Inhale, squeeze the legs, knees draw away from each other. It's like a little scissoring action. Exhale, release your efforts. 3 more of those. The yogis have a lot to say about the pelvic floor. It supports the lower back. It kind of supports our organ body. Supports our posture in our lower back. We can often get a lot of pelvic floor dysfunction depending on our nervous system, depending on the positioning of our pelvis. Now go ahead, relax, keep the crossing, and pull the knees into the chest. And you're gonna hold on wherever you can, onto your knees, your shins, your feet, but try not to round your back. So if I lift up and grab, I can grab my feet, but then my back feels a little rounded. So I'm gonna say hold on a little more loosely so you're not rounding your back. All right. Take an inhale, exhale, squeeze excuse me, inner thighs together again. And now we're gonna take our hands behind the back of the head like we did before. Inhale, press your elbows down, find a slight arch in your back. And then exhale, curl up, squeeze your knees, your inner thighs, your elbows. And then release. Inhale, open the elbows. Maybe your knees move a little forward, arching your back. And exhale, everything squeezes into the middle. And we're only gonna do these another 2 rounds. These are a little more challenging. Strengthening for our deep core, which is part of what can hold us up when we're trying to sit up tall in our meditation posture. Okay, let the feet come down, unwind the legs, windshield wiper, let everything go. And let's do that on the other side, starting with the left leg over the right leg, arms out to a T. We're starting with a basic windshield wiper, right to left. So head goes opposite of your knees. And feeling the restriction in the outer hips, the lower back, even the lower abdomen as we go side to side. Maybe you're pushing a bit into the feet or not. Maybe you're adding a little bit of a pause. Slow it down, be present. One more time on each side. And then we'll come back to the center. Even yourself out, keep the cross. And now just stay here, take an inhale, exhale, squeeze the inner thighs, draw the knees toward opposite sides of the room. It's a very small movement, but it engages those inner thighs, pelvic floor muscles. Relax and continue. Inhale, squeeze, inner thighs, knees draw opposite, and relax. So we're panticulating the inner thighs and pelvic floor. A lot of times the inner thighs are tight. They don't get a lot of stretch unless we're regularly doing yoga. And that can limit our ability to drop our knees open because the inner thigh can tug that knee back to center, doesn't want it to open up. And the pelvic floor can get stuck being like hypertonic as well. It can be either like loose, like hypotonic, where it's no tone, or tight, 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 so it's over contracted. And that leads to being hypotonic, where there's no engagement. And we want it always, any muscle in the body, suppleness. We want it to be able to engage and release. Engage and release. Okay. Now we're going to pull those knees up into the chest and hold wherever you can for a moment. Just squeeze those inner thighs and then hands behind the back of the head. Inhale, there's a little arch. It's much smaller than our other arches, but exhale, you can curl up and then squeeze your inner thighs, squeeze your elbows in, press in your lower back, and then continue. Inhale, knees move a little away. Exhale, we're curling up, curling in. Hold the breath out. One more time. And then release, unwind, and breathe. Take a moment to slide your legs out. Take one more breath there. When you're ready, we're going to bend the knees, roll to the side, and come on up into a seated position. feel free to sit up on a blanket if you prefer. So, we're not in a seated meditation just yet. We're still doing movements to prepare. But first, just flex your feet, sit up tall. And if you need to, you can go into bound angle. You could put blocks under your knees as a support. If you can, you're gonna go cross legs, okay? With the feet flexed. All right, and then we'll sit up nice and tall. Remember, tall but not rigid. Let the shoulders be relaxed. And then lower your chin a little, lengthen and open the back of your neck. From here, isometrically pull your feet apart. And you might feel these outer muscles in the legs engage, and then relax. And then repeat. Pull the feet toward opposite directions. Feel those outer hips strengthening. They are going to support us when we're sitting long periods, and relax. So you could do this like this if you need to, okay? If being cross-legged is too much. Also, I'm just going to show, keep going a few more rounds on this side. You could also blocks here like this and pull apart, or we're cross-legged with the blocks and pull apart, okay? Yeah, so that might give you some support there. Good. Do one more of those, and we're gonna switch the legs if you're doing cross legs. Okay, go ahead, switch. Flex the feet, and if you're not crossing, you don't have to switch. And you're gonna flex the feet and pull apart. And release. Keep that going. Maybe you close your eyes, keep that tall center. One more. Good, and then release. Good. Go back to first side if you're crossing. And then from here, come forward a little bit. And as you come forward a little bit, scoot your sit bones a little back so that you're not rounding your lower back. So we want to kind of almost like you're feeling like you're sticking your sit bones out. Take a breath there. Now again, pull the feet apart isometrically and release. Each time, maybe you walk your hands a little more forward and then pull apart. Feel those outer legs engage. Release. And maybe walk a little more forward, but don't feel like you have to. You could stop moving forward at any point. And we're going to do one more of those. Slowly come up. Pause at the top. And then switch the legs. And once again, flex the feet. Bring your hands just in front of your shins to begin. Make sure you're tipping your sit bones back so that you're not tucked under. And then try to pull the feet apart. And then release. And walk the hands, if you want, a little more forward. And even if it's just a centimeter, you don't have to go far. Don't ever override your body, as we talked about last week. Let's do 2 more rounds, with or without going deeper. Last one. And then slowly walk yourself up. Take your time. This time, let's bring our feet out in front of us and go into our windshield wipers again. Okay, next time your feet drop to the right, let's keep them there. You may or may not need the padding underneath you. So we're in like this, it's like I call it the Z sit, but I wanna have you see if you can bring that one foot out a little forward. So it's almost like a 90-degree here and a 90-degree here, okay? And then turn toward the right leg. Walk yourself forward any amount and flex both feet gently. From here, inhale and pull your right sit bone back away from your right knee and let your right knee get closer to the floor and then release. And then do that again. Inhale, pull the right sit bone back, let the right knee drop, maybe the left knee gets a little heavier, and if you can, lift the left foot and shin. Yeah. And then release. And repeat. Pull the sit bone back. Maybe your weight comes a little more toward that front knee. Maybe that back foot and shin can lift. And then this time, can you go a little bit farther into that stretch and then release. And again, now you might start to walk your hands out. First, you pull the sit bone back, then you lean forward. Then that back shin might lift, and how far it lifts is up to you. And release. One more. And slowly walk yourself up. Stay here with the same positioning and draw circles with your torso. Do a lot of circling. It's a little bit more gentle on the body than just going into a static stretch. So in somatics, we hardly ever hold a static stretch. That's a different style of yoga, more like what we would call yin yoga. But in somatics, we move, but we move in pandiculating fashion, which means we engage and release. Now go the opposite direction, or we stretch and we release with conscious awareness. So just kind of notice that front hip joint, leg, inner outer leg, inner and outer knee. Maybe you're feeling things in the back leg too. Hands can be on the floor. Maybe you even want to try bring your hands off the floor. That might be too much. One more circle. Good, and back to center. Okay, let's go ahead and come back and we'll switch the legs to the other side and we'll start with that 90-degree setup. Facing your left knee. Hands right in front to begin. And we're gonna pull the left sit bone back and let the left knee get heavier. And then let's not even lift that back shin yet. Let's do that one again. Pull the sit bone back. Front leg gets heavier. But now on that next round, we're gonna try and lift the shin, but the knee stays down. So pull the sit bone back and try to lift the shin, and you fold a little more over that front leg, but the knee stays down. And then release. Okay, as you continue, perhaps you're able to walk it out a little bit farther. Important to draw that sit bone back first so we get that length through the IT band. How far you lift that back shin, up to you. Please stay out of anything painful. Go more gentle until you find what's appropriate for your body. Remember, we're respecting the temple. We're honoring the temple. And so we don't want to cause pain. Front foot is a little flexed and back foot's a little flexed. That'll help protect the knee joints. 2 more. Notice if one side range of motion might be a lot different than the other. Okay, and then let's go ahead and walk yourself back to the center. Okay, let's grab our single tennis ball. So we haven't done this one in a little while, but it's really good to release the area around the sit bone. That's related to our hamstring, but also like our glute and our outer hip. So we're gonna pop the ball under the right sit bone area. And then if you can, figure 4. Flex that foot a little bit. And then you're gonna go ahead and bring your weight up onto that ball and circle it around. You can kind of sway your hip and get a little more of that outer hip area. And just circle around above the sit bone, inside, outside. And just go slowly and feel what there is to feel. If it's too much, you could even put the foot down. I find it's a little less intense if you put the foot down, but I like that deeper pressure. Yeah. And then release. Come up, give your arms and hands a little shaking out. And then we'll go to the other side. So if you want, keep your foot down. If you notice that was easier for your body. If you can, you're gonna go into figure 4. And it is a little weight bearing on the arms, so be mindful of that. If it's too much for you, you can go on your fists, or you can even do this on your back if you really wanted to. Should have mentioned that before. But I like to do, some things seated because we're on our back too long. Sometimes we get a little sleepy. So you could do it on your back if you want to. Somatic sometimes can make you a little too relaxed. You want to take a nap. Although I think the ball work wakes us up a bit, right? All right, go ahead and come off of the ball. We'll come back into a bound angle position. Hold on to shins or ankles wherever you can. And rock your sit bones forward and lift your chest. Lengthen the back of your neck, let your chin drop. And then if you're comfortable, close your eyes, find your focal point. As you inhale, can you breathe away from the focal point, down and up? So at the same time, simultaneous, like you're pulling a rubber band in both directions. Breathe in 2 directions at the same time. So your sit bones maybe get heavier and your head gets lighter. And this also strengthens our back. So try and sit up tall. Okay, slowly release, bring yourself a little forward. Just don't go too far and get your sit bones to scoop back and apart as you do that. So similar to something we did last week, We're gonna close our eyes and imagine we're doing a baby cat-cow. So as you inhale, arch your back a tiny bit and move forward as you arch. And then exhale, soften, round, but just mild. Don't make it a big cat-cow. And then again, inhale, move your heart forward, a little arch to your back. Where do you feel it? Exhale, soften. Let the chin come a little down, but don't go super rounded. And maybe you start to go a little more forward each time. So we're working on the spine as well as opening the hips here at the same time. At any point, maybe your sit bones need to go back farther. Let it be just a little pulsation of breath and movement. You actually don't even have to do very much. If you really focus on your breathing, you'll notice the inhale does give you a little bit of that cat-cow arching, and the exhale gives you a little bit of the cat-cow rounding without even efforting. But we could apply a little bit of effort. Good, now let everything go, round in, let your head come down, release your back muscles. Breathe in, breathe out. All right, slowly start to bring yourself up. Take a pause at the top. Bring your legs up. And then come onto your belly. Face forward. So a little bit of back strengthening. I mean, we did some seated. We gotta, we use our back strength when we sit, but we're also gonna use it, here on the floor. Prop up into Sphinx posture. Spread your palms out. And then inhale, pull your heart forward, lift your gaze, and see if you can contract your upper back muscles by pulling your shoulders back and your heart forward and lifting the back of your head. And then like that cat-cow, we're gonna exhale, round in, peel your hips up a little bit, and then inhale, come forward, and think about pulling hands toward hips, heart toward hands, and curl up. And exhale, round in. Take a few more, focusing on your back strength. Last one. After your next exhale, come all the way down, wiggle your hips out. And just pause there for a moment. Okay, next inhale, press your tailbone down, tuck your chin in. And keep your chin down as you lift the back of your head. Squeeze your legs towards each other and reach your toes back. Can you lift the back of your head more without lifting your chin? And keep your tailbone down. And then release. Good, And as you release, let everything go. Okay, all at one time now. Tailbone down, legs together, chin in, lift up. Try to squeeze those inner thighs towards each other. Activates pelvic floor. Try not to bring your chin forward. And then let everything go. 3 more of these. Inner thigh squeeze. Pelvis presses down. Chest lifts up. Arms could even press into the floor to help you lift. 2 more. Rest down, give your hips a little wiggle, and then windshield wiper your shins right to left. And then press back to child's pose. If child's pose doesn't feel good for you, feel free to do a few tabletop movements. Maybe you arch and round again. Breathe in, breathe out. All right, so we're gonna make our way onto our backs and grab a block. We're gonna be coming into supported bridge. So I'm gonna slide the block on the lowest setting under your sacrum. And then take your second block, which I forgot to tell you to do after your mind. Sorry. Second block is gonna go in between your legs. Okay. Lengthen the back of your neck. Take an inhale, exhale, squeeze your block, and then zipper up as if from your pelvic floor to your navel. And we strengthen our lower inner core, and then relax. Now, if this is too much for your lower back, you can do this without the block, but maybe try moving the block a little lower if it feels uncomfortable. We're gonna repeat. Inhale, exhale, squeeze the block and draw energy as if from that block up your pelvic floor, contract, zipper your lower abdomen all the way toward your ribs, and then relax. And keep going. This is strengthening our deep core, which helps give us internal strength and support for sitting up tall. A lot of us have a weak, deep core. How much you engage here is up to you. You're not going to see anything externally. This is all happening internally. Important to relax everything in between. Excuse me. So let the pelvic floor, the inner thighs relax, and then re-engage. One more. All right, and then go ahead and remove the block between your legs. Lift your hips, slide the block out from underneath you, come down, and windshield wiper. Okay, we're almost out of time, but we're gonna do a couple things with those double balls, so grab those. And now we're gonna lift our hips and put those balls horizontal, right at the lower back, right above your sacrum. So remember I said, like when we sit in a seated position, if our lower back's tight, our hips are tight, it can affect our posture. So we're gonna loosen up the lower back a little bit with the ball work. Now, if the balls are too intense, put a blanket over them, make them softer. How much padding is up to you. You could have a thin layer, double your blanket. But pause here, one ball should be on either side of your spine. And now sway your hips right to left. And just let those balls massage right along the top rim of your sacrum, which is often where we have the most compression and tightness. Back to the center. And now a little baby cat-cow. So tailbone kind of drops and then lifts. And the balls will again massage more now up and down rather than right left. You can make this movement as small as you want. And at any point, if you feel like you want to go a little higher, go a little higher. We're going to gradually move it up a little bit. So maybe you want to do that now. Okay, and then pause, arms out to a T and do a baby windshield wiper. So you're not going to go all the way. Just rock your knees right to left. And again, maybe you want to move those balls up a little bit before you do that. We're trying to hit the whole lumbar area, which is often really tight, compressed, weak. Giving it some mild fascial release. Back to center, move the balls up a little bit. They're still under your rib cage somewhere. And now just breathe. One more breath. To get higher up toward the rib cage, we get closer to the kidney band. So if it's too intense, find a different spot. Now slide your right hip up toward your right shoulder and do a little side bend. Head goes right, give a little squeeze there. And then other side. Left hip toward the left shoulder, head goes left, a little bit of a squeeze. Go right to left a few times. After this next one, back to center, take the balls away, all the way down, pause. Okay, we're gonna be getting ready for Shavasana, so might be a good time now, hug knees to chest, little rocking, circling, happy babies. Do what feels good for your body. And then preparing for rest. So grabbing any props you need, comfortable and warm and supported. Come into your breath, that sense of the focal point for a few moments. Breathing down, breathing up, away from that focal point, creating the sense of length in your spine. Albert Einstein said, I think 99 times, and I find nothing. I stop thinking, swim in silence, and the truth comes to me. So as we still the fluctuations of the mind, come into our true nature, the truth of who we are that often gets drowned out through all the external stimuli. It really kind of removes us, blocks us from the sacred. So many distractions in our modern world that take away that sense of reverence for nature, or creation, or the miracle of our own bodies. There's no reverence in scrolling through social media mindlessly. There's no reverence in watching our Netflix shows. All part of our culture, but all taking us away from what truly matters. The sense of going into our own sacred space is where we can create change, where we can heal, where we can bring all of that energy back home, or maybe it was pulled in 1,000 directions. So invite yourself home and into the temple of your being. Let the breath be a sense of softness and nurturing and slowness that only happens when we're truly present. I'm going to share a reading from my teacher's book. This is called In the Space Between, Poetry of Embodiment by T.S. Little. And this is a piece of writing called Consecrate the Space Within. Each day, the most profound and nutritive thing you can do is rest in a space that is wide open, silent, and still. In meditation, as you come into the temple of your body-mind, make your breath tactile. Sense the weight of your bones and learn to drop in. Relinquish all urgency and loosen your sense of time. Mostly what you need is a tenderness, willingness to welcome your heart, that which cannot be seen with the naked eye. Don't insist banging on the door, clamoring to get in. For entry is always given when you least expect it. Be solidly patient and stay true to your calling. And suddenly, invisible like the wind, you will slip past the threshold and enter the sanctum of serenity. It is like walking into a cathedral where many before you have gone to consider, seek solace, and pray. Go and sit in the half light, empty of need, not looking to get anywhere or gain anything. Sit in wonder wide in the open air. Deflate any doubts that keep you from yourself. Unfetter the knots that bind you to fear and loathing. Be kind toward the small, shy you that resides in your heart, the one that longs to be entire, undivided, and free. Bask in the shaft of light that spills from the highest window, and let all the particles of prana settle in your open space of wonder, and consecrate the space within. Take your time. We're going to start to come back with some gentle movements, small breath. Try not to make any jarring movements or sudden deep breaths. Just deepen gradually. Eventually come onto your side. When you're ready, find a seated position of your choosing. And you're welcome to sit up on blankets, put the blocks under your knees, find your seated meditation posture. Widen the sit bones, opens up the space of the pelvic floor, the base of the spine. So if our sit bones are kind of tucked in, there's less of that openness to support the spine. And then sit up tall but not rigid. Find your focal point. And as you inhale, imagine the breath moving down and also up from that focal point simultaneously. As you exhale, try to keep all of the height of your spine without collapsing. Feel like you're entering the temple of your own body. With this internal awareness of your inner architecture. Letting the crown of the head reach toward that imaginary highest window, as if a beam of light could just kind of shower you with that beautiful light. The rays of light meeting your body. Sense of being illuminated. In addition to that temple within, the space around you, maybe imagine yourself in the place of your own choosing, a sacred space. Maybe it's indoors. Maybe it's a beautiful temple. Maybe it's the cathedral of the beautiful tall trees. Immerse yourself in the sacred moment, the power of now. Still the fluctuations of the mind, and then rest in your true nature. You're ready, we're going to go ahead and bring palms together. Take an inhale, exhale, bow to your heart. Namaste. Thank you.